All right, y'all. What's going on? It's Combo Breaking 99 back with another What Went Wrong. This time we are back with that What Went Wrong with none other than Zhang Weili. I know y'all been waiting for this one. You know what? I've been waiting for this from other fans. Like I said, man, it's okay. It's okay. Look, if the fighter you pick loses, talk to me. Talk to me. Let me know. In the comment section, or if you want to drop a link, or you want me to drop a link, and you want to just kind of chat about the fighter you picked and why they lost. Let's talk about it. Don't disappear. Everybody's always waiting for me to disappear if the fighter I pick loses. But hey, I'm coming right back talking, because that's what I do. I like to watch fights and analyze fights. I'm not here to just pick winners. I mean, I have been picking a lot of winners lately. I mean, Verner's the only one that lost. But yeah, Zhang Weili, look, man, I got a lot of respect for moving up. But once you just look at this fight on paper and when you looked at it physically when they got into the cage, there was just a number of things. There was just a number of things that went wrong in this fight. I only picked two. I really only picked two because these two things really did play a big factor in my opinion, and that's just it. There's no excuses, of course, but if you ask like what went wrong, something had to go wrong in a fight for a person to lose, right? And for me, for Zhang Weili to lose this fight the way she did a couple of Saturdays ago now, 50-45, I mean, complete shutout. I think the number one thing for me that just hit me was a lot of people, it was just like the size. It was like, oh, it's the size. But for me, it comes down to the skill first. It comes down to the skill first because if somebody moves up, they really truly believe in their skill across the board, right? So for me, number one was the skill on the feet. And to just really narrow it down, I'm talking about Zhang Wei Li's technique and strategy and just her overall like fundamentals on the feet compared to Valentina's. I think that's what went wrong in this fight. They didn't really focus on like an educated type of chaos to go in there and disrupt Valentina's usual style. There was I won't even say like a lot of respect shown. I think there was just like a lack of fundamentals on Wei Li's side. Like Wei Li was never to me like this great striker. I think she's a solid fighter when it comes to evolving and just putting different tools together. And then when you combine that just with her natural abilities, she turns into like this dangerous pit bull. But overall, I think somebody like Valentina Shevchenko was just too fundamentally sound. And to me, Valentina, she uses the best elements of a Muay Thai background without being like too flat footed, and even putting herself in danger of takedowns. That's why, you didn't ever see like Wei Li get in too close because, again, Zhang Wei Li, she just doesn't have that same IQ on her feet. Valentina Shevchenko, she knows how to measure and takes a lot of stand up elements she's taken from boxing, Muay Thai, kickbox, all these different stand up sports and knows how to use them here in the octagon. She's measuring, making small moves, not making big subtle, not making big movements, but like those little subtle movements. Just like even whenever she's like turning to face Whaley, every time Whaley turns, Valentina's just slightly moving just a little bit. That's why Whaley can't get any type of angles. She's throwing quick and assertive strikes, head and body on Whaley. So there's just so many things on the feet that I don't think like Zhang Weili they were used to and really prepared for, even in the past. Like, you never really seen like Zhang Wei Li put together like this technical shutout on the feet, against a lot of fighters. I mean, hey, name a fight, and I'll wait. I mean, even the Joanna fight, that wasn't like a technical shutout ever, right? It was more of a back and forth war, right? Wei Li, she's fast and powerful, and she's got good mechanics, but her sound fundamentals, they just weren't there. She was looking for one way in and hope Valentina Shevchenko would react to every rush, big enough for reactions. So um, Shevchenko would kind of get mixed up on her feet, but that never happened. Valentina Shevchenko just kept catching her every time she came in because, again, the master at distance management is Valentina Shevchenko. Wei Li being shorter and having the shorter reach, Shevchenko, she already knew how much space she could give up before Wei Li could touch her. So you could see Valentina Shevchenko just ready to strike after every few steps in from Wei Li. When Wei Li took like 2, 3, 4 steps running in, boom, the knee catches her in the chest. Or 1, 2 step in, boom, the body kick catches her. And then Wei Li goes on retreat, gets a little further in, boom, she catches the spinning back fist, boom, she catches the right hook, and boom, she got to reset, right? So just so many of those little things like that just show me that okay, Wei Li's fundamentals just aren't solid, and her overall striking strategy was just There really wasn't one because they never really faced this type of fighter and evolved like that on the feet. And it's evident because there's a lack of boxing footwork. When you go back and look at Alexa Grasso, how she was able to kind of baffle Valentina early on and catch Valentina with good sequences, that shows you that boxing IQ is something that Valentina Shevchenko hasn't faced in a while. But just regular, like, fast movement, like Joanna's possessed in the past, and even like how Manon kind of fell into the game trap of Valentina. Now Zhang Weili, just really fast, but not really like sneaky and subtle. And that shows you like another piece of evidence was Weili stood in front of Shevchenko and stood in front of her with her lead foot on the inside of the southpaw. All right. That just shows you she didn't really have those boxing fundamentals and that boxing type of footwork because, yeah, she's fast. But if you look at the feet the whole time, Zhang Weili is in the striking zone the whole time. She's never keeping her lead foot on the outside and moving to her left to take away power from the left hand or even try to neutralize the right hook or the jab. Like, she's darting straight in. And I didn't really hear a team that say, hey, step to your left or keep your lead foot on the outside. I know this is MMA, but still, that still works in MMA. It works perfect in boxing most of the times, but even in MMA, it'll work because you can take away that power hand and you can still get in at an angle. So when she was just darting straight in, she's catching body kicks again. She's almost got hit with a couple of head kicks because she's straight in. She's in the zone. Her lead foot's on the inside. I'm just trying to break this down, y'all. Her lead foot's on the inside. So she's squared up for all kinds of offense from Valentina. I'm really surprised she didn't get caught with a head kick, like square on the jaw. I mean, I was just really surprised. And, she was catching the knees to the body and everything else, right? It was just no angles and there was no tight defense either. That's why she was getting hit with a lot of body kicks too, because something I said my keys to victory was she needs to be like compact, like Grasso was, tucking her elbows in so she can take some of that heat off the body kicks or even like a couple of straight left hands. And once you take boom, boom, like the first two hard shots, which is what Valentina usually does. Like, Valentina usually stings you with the first two. Once she does that and you can like deflect some of it as you coming in, you can get off. That's how Grasso did. Grasso ate the jab a few times, but Grasso like took a lot of steam off the body kicks and jabs so she could get her hard 1-2 off. And that's another thing. You got to know how to sacrifice for some of that punch. You just can't go at punishment. You want to take some punishment against Valentina. A lot of fighters, as soon as they get hit once, they go right back into respect mode. But expect to get hit by Valentina because Grasso did, but she committed and her defense was good enough to, eat a few shots to give 2 or 3 of her own. So, yeah, I just think the striking was like number one because that's where the fight starts. Number two, I will say this, a lot of people will say it's excuses, but size and strength, size and strength. I mean, obviously there was a size difference, but that's not to downplay Shevchenko's victory because this is what Weili wanted. This is what she got. Over 6-7 years, she's been calling for this fight. There's plenty of time to know what you're up against and how to prepare for it. If you're championship level and you step up your weight class when you just won a belt, then it's time to go. The stare down is one thing, but the fight is another. The stare down, yeah, she looked good. Looked like she filled out well, which she probably did, but this being her first time is one of the strongest fighters in the world. I mean, that's a different ball game. Weili's size, to me, honestly, if you want to know my take, I think her size fits well at 115. Even her style. Like, I think Weili's style was crafted for years at beating straw weights, and she's never really been like technically sound and defense savvy and one to outslick opponents. She's always been used to being a powerful, stronger wrestler or brawler or whatever. She's never really been that defensive savvy before or just beats her opponents, like in complete shutouts, just like how Valentina does, where she takes a couple of tools and shuts you down and takes away all your weapons. I mean, she's done that, of course, to Suarez and Lemos, but not in such a fashion where you were like, oh, yeah, like she's got great defense. Or, oh, man, like she's slick like that. She's always fought like that pit bull against, these fighters where she's usually the stronger fighter, So going in there against somebody like Valentina, in my opinion, I think, her style combined with her size, it just didn't spell victory, which goes into the strength. We all hope she would carry the strength up for a good fight, but let's be real. Even the champion Islam, he spoke on the fight. Her possibility of, just like a lack of building strength for 125 and just getting bigger. Like he said, maybe she just, was able to eat and get to that weight, or, just make 125, but there really wasn't no solid strength training, like to just really, really grow in that weight. And once you're doing that against not just a tune-up fight at 125, but against the strongest at 125, that just spells disaster. So part of that I do agree with, like maybe, of course, she didn't really grow into the weight because that was her first fight. But once you're fighting Valentina Shevchenko, I don't think it matters how much strength you put on as a strawweight moving up, right? Because even for a fighter like Rose Namajunas, she learned the hard way on growing into 125. She took on Manon for a first fight, and that fight really wasn't full on strength based, but she learned, you just can't jump in there against number one contender and think, oh, I'm gonna beat this big girl and move on because she's not a title, she's not a champion. But you got to start at a level. You got to start at a level. See, Alexa Grasso, she had the chance to grow into 125, and she filled out well. It fit her well. She now fits into flyweights. Now you really can't question. You can still match her up. Now I know her certain technical skills are questionable at times, but Grasso to me is a full-fledged flyweight now. She grew into it 4 or 5 fights before the champion, and boom. So again, for Weili, this is no excuses for her, not at all. But based off her strength, coming in the way she was, based off her strength at 115 and handling the best, at 115, that's one thing. That's one thing. But coming in here handling the best, I mean, the champion at 125 is your first fight. And then you obviously see it, because I heard the commentators. I watched the fight again yesterday, and I could hear like Joe and DC, now saying, oh, yeah, I see the size difference, which there is not just the size difference, it's the strength difference. Let me put it that way. Let's not confuse the two, because, Joanna was bigger. Rose, she looked bigger than Joanna. They both did look bigger in those fights. But this particular fight here, you could see the size difference. But imagine if Weili had grown into it and was having like a better IQ on the feet, and she was stronger, she would be able to she would have been able to give Valentina a better fight. But here, you just come up and you fight the strongest fighter in the world. There's no way you're going to beat her. There's no way you're going to beat her, because again, like, her style is just not crafted to move across weight classes. I know people are going to get mad at that, but that's just true. It's just true. I mean, again, I use the Roy Jones comparison in boxing. Roy, when moving up from middleweight, super middleweight to light heavyweight to heavyweight, he wasn't as big or as strong as these light heavies or the heavyweight he fought, but he was fast, and he had a style that could get in and get out and avoid punishment, and he could still be dominant. Why? Because he wasn't coming straight in. He wasn't coming straight in. His style and mechanics, same as Floyd Mayweather, their styles were made to be carried across divisions because of how they approach all fighters. That's why they call it pound for pound, because how they fight all fighters, how their style matches against all fighters, because it's built in a way to fight all fighters, just about. Of course, there's going to be bigger fighters they can't handle, but for the most part, they're going to be able to handle their own. That's why I picked Terrence Crawford to beat Canelo, because Crawford is not just a run and gun type of slugger versus, like, let's say if Errol fought Canelo, I would say Canelo would win because of Errol's style. He could move up, but style-wise and skill-wise, I don't think he could handle it like that. Crawford, across the board on his skills, he could handle Canelo because of because of the approach of how he fights, the angles he comes in at. So yeah, pound for pound style, like Valentina, Floyd, even Islam, that it just has to be something crafted. So I think Weili, her style overall, it just like lacks solid defense and an ability to. She lacks that inability to kind of make up for the shorter reach at the higher weight class, if that makes sense. The same way like a Roy or Floyd, they make up for it. Their size or their power against these bigger punches and bigger guys, they make up for it with angles and intelligence and, just pacing and taking their time and, just different things like angles and all of that. So yeah, man, like, what went wrong for Zhang Weili? It's just not her weight class, in my opinion. I just don't think it is. I don't think it is, because a number of these things. Granted, she could improve and she could change, but I think at like 36, 37 right now, she needs to spend her last days at 115, because with these two things that she's lacking, like the strength and the sound like fundamentals and how to fight technically sound striking matches and getting in on your opponent. I don't really see her doing that against better strikers like Natalia and Manon and bigger, stronger fighters like Aaron and Manon. Again, I got to throw her name in there. Never beaten Valentina. What if she did beat one of those girls? She gets a title shot again. I still see Valentina doing her the same way, maybe even stopping her again, stopping her in the second go round. So really, for me, I don't really think there's much at 150, 125 for Zhang Weili. If she wanted to retire, I mean, that would be kind of a shocker too. But I mean, she could go back down and become a three-time strawweight champion, right? I could see that, and maybe get a couple more title defenses, then ride off in the sunset. But that's just the way it is. Some people are just one division champions. I mean, not saying you're one dimensional, but some people are just built for one specific division, right? And I'm fine with that. I mean, even though I'm not like this hardcore Whaley fan, like most people are, they're not telling me what they saw. I think that she's gonna go down as one of the best in the world, and she never really needed to prove herself by going up in weight. To me, she was fine at 115, and she could close out her days there, and still be seen as one of the fighters in WMMA that you could put on their Mount Rushmore. Some people do that already. But yeah, what did y'all think went wrong? I mean, I know most of y'all didn't say anything about it anyway, but this is my take. I think those are the two main takeaways, I think. And yeah, that's just how it is. Valentina Shevchenko, she's got the pound for pound style. Hers can move up, it can move down. And it just comes down how you fight and how you fight technically with your strength too. Strength, how you use your strength in the octagon. There's a science behind that too. And Valentina's used that many times in her fights too. But yeah, that's all I got on this one, guys. Just wanted to do a little mini podcast on that's what went wrong and just give y'all my take. But hit that like and subscribe. I'm out. Peace.